Hi, folks. I am looking forward to being back with you soon. But in the meantime, I wanted to get you started on preparing for our drama unit, and we get to tackle Shakespeare, everybody's favorite. I say that only somewhat facetiously. I actually really love Shakespeare. He is difficult to understand sometimes, but absolutely worth the challenge. You have had exposure to him already with Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth, and now we get to tackle Hamlet and hopefully Othello, two of his most mature tragedies, and actually probably two of the most deep. So I'm looking forward to it. But before we tackle Shakespeare, I want to make sure you have some background on Elizabethan drama and the time frame that Shakespeare wrote in. And so the ideology that we're dealing with here is humanism. And humanism is definitely more positive than existentialism, which is what we just dealt with in the Metamorphosis. So as you are listening to this screencast, please know that I will eventually ask you to be taking notes on this and show them to the sub. So in terms of what humanism is from the definition standpoint, it is an ideology that emphasizes the dignity and worth of the individual. So this is already more positive than the existentialist era because the humanists believed that every human being was good. At some level, they were good, and that people are rational human beings, and that within us we have a great capacity for goodness. They also acknowledge that not every human lives up to that, but they did acknowledge that every human has the potential and has the capacity for it. So one of the other pieces to note is humanism as a term describes the literary and cultural movement from the 14th and 15th century, largely in Europe. They did revive Greek and Roman studies, so we will go back and review a little bit of Greek lit prior to this, just to give you a frame of reference. But because this was centered in Europe, in England, during the 14th and 15th century, we do see the transition to more Judeo-Christian ideas. The other piece with this era is that more people had access to written material with the invention of printing and movable types. So again, more people had access, and that really led to the flourishing of Elizabethan literature and culture. So this is where you started to see more people seeing plays and having access to print. And so a little bit of background on Elizabethan drama from the Elizabethan era, Queen Elizabeth. This was developed in the latter part of the 16th century. And what we saw in English drama was more of topicality that appealed to a popular audience. So the plays really became very much like what the movies are to us today. They were entertainment. They did contain social commentary and political commentary. But again, like the movies, like TV shows, they were also there to entertain people. And so Shakespeare was our most prominent playwright of the time, but his contemporaries during that time were Marlowe and Kidd. And this is where we saw dramas continue to really flourish in terms of their topicality. So you saw much in the way of humor and spectacle and romance and drama. From this era, this is where we really started to see the development of what we now see as drama. If you think about our TV shows like Grey's Anatomy, you think of the musicals that we now see that really draw on some very interesting romance, humor, spectacle, and so on. And as I said already, Shakespeare really was considered the culminating playwright in this era. A couple of things that you want to be aware of with Shakespearean plays: classical scene, act, and structure. So all of his plays are run in 5 acts with anywhere from 1 to 5 scenes. Shakespeare wrote in iambic pentameter and in free verse. He mixed up both, and we'll play with both, and we'll kind of analyze why he does include both forms in his writing. And Shakespeare was a much more round and developed playwright because he did incorporate elements of tragedy, comedy, and the pastoral in all of his works. So even in plays like Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet, where they're a tragedy and several people die, you will see a lot of humor mixed in there. And in the same token, with the comedies that you see, such as The Taming of the Shrew and A Midsummer Night's Dream, you will see shades of darkness in there. So again, I think that shows Shakespeare's maturity as a playwright to really kind of intermix those genres. He also combined several plots. So earlier plays would have had one plot line, one set of characters that you're following, one storyline that you're following. Shakespeare really ushered in this era of modern drama where we see several subplots. I want you to think about your favorite TV shows like Grey's Anatomy or Friends or Station 19. You'll see that while there's this one general plot line of the adventures that happen with this particular group of people, each character has their own story arc, and that comes from Shakespeare. You'll also see him covering plenty of time and space, multiple settings, multiple characters, multiple stories. With Shakespeare, you also see where they really start to have a broader representation of the society. So you'll have a play with Shakespeare where you will have people of the upper class and people of the lower class. You will see people of the middle class and varying education levels. You'll see music, you'll see dance, you'll see spectacle. This is really where drama as we now know it today really began to take root and develop. So, the theater itself, Shakespeare's plays were presented in open air theaters and they were presented in the warmer months, the summertime. And these theaters were open to everybody. So, they would have the stage and the floor level. The floor level was for the lower class. You paid a penny, your pence, and you got to stand near the stage and watch the play. That was for the penny public, and the standing room was where the cheap seats were. Think of the irony of that now. All right, the rich people in the Shakespearean era sat up higher in special boxes. Today in this world, if you go to a concert, you pay huge amounts of money to be closer to the stage. So that's one thing that's different nowadays. So other pieces to kind of note here is that, again, Elizabethan drama was ultimately meant to be a form of entertainment. Yes, there were social comments. Yes, there were political comments. But I do want to stress again where for this era, the plays really did become a form of entertainment, very similar to movies and TV shows today. Movies and TV shows today do make social comments, they do make political comments, but they are still a form of entertainment. And again, that's what's going on here with Shakespeare. And that really is your upshot of Shakespearean Elizabethan drama. As you are listening to this, feel free to rewind it, take notes. It can be in an outline, it can be in a graphic organizer, but you do want to make sure that you're taking the notes and that you have your substitute initial it when you're done. And please jot down any questions that you have, and I will happily tackle them when I see you soon. Thank you so much.